Long nose story. Once upon a time, there was a young guy named De. His family was poor, so his parents had to let him live in a wealthy old man's house. The rich man forced him to herd the buffalo. But he had a habit of playing around, and when he got into a battle, or flying a kite, he no longer knew anything about heaven and earth. Therefore, many times he let the buffalo eat rice and potatoes, and many times he was severely beaten by the owner. One day, De and his friends held a swimming competition. Herds of buffalo roam on deserted hills. The competition for the prize got to the point where De couldn't stop. From diving to diving, swimming on my stomach to swimming on my back, the fun lasted until nearly noon. Suddenly, when I looked up at the herd of buffalo, I saw that one was missing. That buffalo is De Blank's son. The children panicked and split up to look from one bush to the other, but couldn't find any sign of it. That's it, De's buffalo was led away by a thief. The children shouted like that, and then each of them took their buffaloes home. Only De stayed behind, struggling to cry. Cried for a long time and then fell asleep. While sleeping, he suddenly woke up because something touched his face. He opened his eyes and saw a flock of crows gathering around. It turned out that they thought there was a dead body, so they came to have a meal. One swooped in and tried to peck out his eyes. Seeing that, De made a plan to suddenly get up and catch a crow's leg, while the others flew away. "Well, I'll tell you. How dare you come and peck my eyes?" Hearing that, the crow begged, "Please forgive me, I will give you a precious gift." "What is it? Show it here." The crow quickly spit out a small but sparkling pearl from its mouth, gave it to him and said, "This is the smallest but most precious pearl in the world. Whatever you want to ask for, you will get it right away." I thought, so we are losing the buffalo, let's try praying to see if it works. Then he said loudly, "Knock. Gem. I want a buffalo to replace the one who just passed away." Suddenly, from the bottom of the hill, a buffalo slowly walked up. Both surprised and happy, he quickly freed the crow and rode back on the buffalo. From then on, De became happy and rich. He returned the buffalo to the rich man and then returned home to live with his parents. But he only dared to ask for trivial things. One day he took the jade and placed it in his palm and said, "Jade. Gem. I want to have a splendid and rich castle." Suddenly, when he woke up the next morning, he no longer saw his parents' shabby thatched roof. Instead, it was a towering building with a tiled roof, flowered walls, and intricately carved rafters. Especially in the house, everything is decorated very luxuriously, the servants are bustling, outside the garden is luxuriant with trees, and in the front yard there are fragrant flowers and strange grasses. There is no shortage of anything. Dike has never been so satisfying. Not long after, De took out the jade again and prayed, "Knock. Gem. I want to have a beautiful wife." As soon as the wish ended, he saw someone coming in from outside the door. It was a matchmaker who came to talk to the daughter of a wealthy man in the area. After going to the market with her to have a look, he saw that the girl was truly a beautiful woman with phoenix eyes and eyebrows. It seemed that there was hardly anyone in the world. The matchmaker also said, "The rich man is squinting about your wealth. If you want, I will take care of it thoroughly and quickly." De was extremely happy, so he assigned the matchmaker and the servant to arrange everything for him. Just as she said, in less than a week, that beautiful girl became his wife. But he did not expect his wife to be a bad-hearted person. When she got married, she just wanted to help her father discover his secret to getting rich quickly. Therefore, after becoming D's wife, she often inquired about everything. But D doesn't want anyone to know his secret. He just pretended to ignore his wife's curious questions. The precious gem he always kept in a secret place. However, his wife still tried to find out without getting discouraged. One day the wife bought wine for her husband to drink. In a drunken stupor, he forgot everything and told his wife everything he kept secret. While Du was lying unconscious, his wife stole the pearl and then sneaked back to the rich man's house. When Du woke up, he found his wife absent. Looking for jade, I couldn't find it. Knowing that his wife had stolen the precious pearl, he had to go to the rich man's house to try to make his wife feel better. But not only did his wife refuse to take the pearl, but he was also severely chased away by the rich people. Both lost his pearl and his wife. I was so sad, I left disappointed. Passing by a temple, he stopped to rest. Then when he thought about jade, he burst into tears. Suddenly, a god with a long white hair and beard appeared in front of him and asked, "Why are you crying?" "Let me tell you about my first love, without hiding anything." The god said, "Don't be sad. I will show you a way to get your precious thing back." Having said that, the god walked to the vase on the incense burner, broke off a white flower and a red flower, and said, "Take this white flower and put it on his door. Surely something bad will happen to it. At that time, I will use the red flower to get the pearl back." Having finished speaking, the god disappeared. Following the god's instructions, Du secretly brought a white flower and pinned it to the window of the rich man's house, in his wife's room, before leaving. Talking about Du's wife, who was sitting and fondling the precious gem, suddenly smelled a sweet scent spreading throughout the room. Following the scent of her search, she soon found the flower pinned to the door. "Damn, how can there be such a strangely fragrant flower?" As she spoke, she held the strange flower and put it in her nose, sniffing it. The wealthy couple saw the fragrant smell and ran in to pick up the flower to look at it and also brought it to their nose to enjoy the fragrance. But soon, they felt the tip of their nose itching, so they tried to scratch it, but the more they scratched, the more their nose swelled, and gradually grew longer. They shouted together, "Oh! This flower has ghosts. Why is my nose like this?" The three people looked at each other in extreme fear, because they saw that each person's nose kept protruding more and more. Before, they were still looking at their mouths, but now they were longer than their chins. But they still haven't stopped. The nose still hangs down over the chest, then over the stomach, and even longer, down, until it almost touches the ground. "Oh! So embarrassing, it looks like an elephant's trunk." Du's wife shed tears thinking about her unique beauty before. Both mother and child quickly hid in the room to avoid the servants. Only the rich man covered his face with a scarf and hurriedly told his family to go get a doctor. But when seeing a strange disease, every doctor shook his head. "Your nose only has a cut. But cutting it doesn't necessarily cure it, it will only make it worse and more dangerous." 2 days later, Du ran to his wife's parents' house, carrying a red flower in his bag. When seeing the rich man's long nose, Du couldn't help but laugh. understanding that it was due to the magic of the magic flower. In response to De's question, the rich man recounted the beginning and the end. De replied, "That's nothing strange. It came from stealing my wife's pearls. If you return that pearl to me, I will be able to make my nose shorter and healthy again." The rich man had no other choice but to urge his daughter to return the treasure to her husband. After receiving the correct gem, De held out the red flower for them to smell. In just a moment, the proboscis gradually shrunk and shrunk until the nose returned to its original shape. To bring his wife back, the couple has since lived together in harmony and happily. Every time the village has something difficult, they pray to De for the pearl's help. Later, when De was old and weak, one day while lying in his hospital bed, he suddenly saw the old crow come and land at the window and say, "Give me back the pearl. Give me back the pearl." Hearing that, De immediately reached under his pillow and took out the pearl and held it out for the crow, but before he could give it to the crow jumped in and grabbed the pearl in his hand and flew away. 1. Archaeology. Vietnamese fairy tales also have the story of the mother and daughter of the queen having long noses, which is a variation of the above story. There was a father and son from another family. The father was about to die and told his son to bury himself in the pond in front of the house. 3 years later, he slapped the pond and found it. "Just take whatever you want and use it." The son followed the instructions and got a bag, a belt and a flute. The more you shake your bag, the more money you make. The belt is tightened, the naturally light body suddenly runs as fast as flying. The flute blew, and many military officers appeared around to protect. On the occasion of the king choosing a son-in-law, the son brought all 3 things to show off his talent. He used his belt to rush to the capital. Then in front of the king, he shook out a pile of silver from his pocket. When the king's men rushed back, he played the flute, and immediately a soldier appeared to guard and not let him take it. The king was afraid, so he betrothed him to the princess, told the princess and queen to steal the treasures and chase them away. Frustrated, he went to collect firewood to survive. When he came across a custard apple tree, he tried eating one fruit and felt his nose itch. The more he scratched his nose, the longer it got. When he reached a certain place and was thirsty, he jumped into a pond to quench his thirst. Unexpectedly, the pond water made his nose shorter than before. He took the custard apples and a bottle of water, brought them back to the capital in disguise, and sold them to the king. The queen and her mother ate custard apples and their noses grew longer. "When I found a doctor, my nose grew longer by 1 fathom. At that time, the guy pretended to be a beggar girl and asked to come in for treatment, saying that he had to beat her and leave her in the sun for 3 days to recover. He beat the princess first, then applied a little water, and her nose shrank. On the 3rd day, he didn't apply it, just said, 'So it can't be cured completely. There must have been some mistake. Like taking something from someone or something.' The princess confessed that she took the flute and then tied it around her waist. Giving it back, he treated the princess further and said, 'Nothing else, just pay it all to be completely cured.' Finally the princess returned the bag. He said, 'You are evil people, it is right to suffer the fate of long noses and then leave.' 2. The above story is also quite popular in Europe and Asia. The image of the versions sometimes shows a nose growing as long as an elephant's trunk, similar to our story. These are German stories, collected by Grimm, Italian stories in Rome, and Irish stories, but not about smelling flowers but about eating an apple or a fig. Sometimes the head grows horns, like French and Arabic stories. Sometimes it grows a tail like the Italian story in Marquet, or turns into a deer's head like the story of Akasi. There are also times when people turn into monkeys like Indian stories, or turn into donkeys like stories from the Kalmyks, etc. Below are some stories with images of heads growing horns. First of all, the French story. The money bag, the whistle and the hat. Close to the version we just told. There are 3 brothers. One is the captain, one is the foreman, and one is the maid. All have duties. Take turns guarding the forest. One day it was the 3rd person's turn. While guarding, he suddenly saw an old woman coming to the house asking for heat. He said, "Don't come in. If my brothers wake up, they will kill you." The old woman replied, "I will give you a bag." "For what?" "If you put your hand in, it's always 5 years away. Give it to me." He let the old lady in to get the bag. Tomorrow night, it's the 2nd person's turn. The same thing happened as above, but this time it wasn't a bag of money but a whistle. Blowing it could cause soldiers to appear. Another night it was the 1st person's turn, but this time it was the hat that went anywhere. One day, the 3rd person played cards with a princess. The princess has a mirror where she can see her opponent's cards. So he lost his whole bag of money. Returning to the forest, he met the old woman again. The old woman asked why she was sad. He told the truth. She said she borrowed the whistle and would get the bag back. But he lost heavily and lost the whistle. The old lady told her to borrow a hat, but in turn she lost her hat. The old woman then gave him some apples. "Here are 5. Sell them to the princess." The princess bought apples, gave 2 to the maid, and she ate 3. As a result, the maid grew 2 horns on her head, while the princess grew 3. Call a doctor to cut it. The more you cut it, the stronger it grows. At this time, the old woman gave him 2 bottles of water. "Here, this bottle makes horns grow, that bottle makes horns disappear. Will you come and get back the lost things?" Coming to the castle in disguise, he claimed to be a physician who could cure horn loss. He intentionally let the maid drink water to make her horns fall off, and the princess drank water to grow horns. The princess asked, "Why is the medicine not effective for me?" Answer: "Yes, there must be something related to conscience. Do not have." "Then why is it that one person heals and the other grows more? We have to sincerely repent." "Ah, I took someone's evil bag. Give it to me. You need to return something that doesn't belong to you." He showed the princess a horn to drink after receiving the bag. Then he said again, "It seems that the sin is not over yet. I took a dirty whistle." The princess continued, "Give it here, you have to give it back." "Yes, then pay." He gave the second dehorning drink again. "Say the above again." The princess confessed, "I took the diaper hat. Give it to me." But when he got the hat back, he walked away, leaving the princess with the remaining horn. 3. Similar to the above stories is the Thai people's fairy tale, Nagian, Strange Banana Pepper. There were 4 father and son who were rewarded by the god for not being greedy. A mouth-pressing lid that could make rice, a dull knife can take down any forest tree, and a stick can go anywhere. But God did not reveal their mystery. The two older brothers, when they saw the squeeze lid making rice, became lazy and spoiled, except for the diligent younger brother who discovered the miracle of the latter two things. He used a knife with his father to break the fields, then used a stick to go to the king's palace, and was loved by the princess. But the princess's father, saw that he belonged to a lowly family and was not satisfied, demanding that he build a road of rice before marrying him. Princess. Thanks to the mouth pressure cap, he did it without difficulty. When he smelled that he had something precious, the king agreed to marry him, but forced him to get drunk so he could spill all his secrets. Then, pretending not to believe, the king told him to bring it to try and see. So he was imprisoned and all his treasures were taken away. Thanks to the prison guard's help, he escaped from prison and went to the forest, unexpectedly encountering a banana tree with strangely large fruit. He ate a fruit that suddenly grew many horns. Then he met an orange tree with fruit and ate it, and the horn fell off. He disguised himself and brought bananas to the king, causing the whole royal family to grow horns, causing chaos in the palace. He dressed as a doctor again and went in to treat him, and like the stories above, told the patient that only by setting up an offering to the bridegroom's soul with its belongings could there be hope for healing. The king only gave him a dull knife. He fed me an orange segment and the horn shortened a bit. He pretended he couldn't cure it and left. The king hurriedly brought the other two things back, but he scolded the king and then rode away on his magic stick. Both embarrassed and frustrated, the king vomited blood and died. And he later married another modest girl. 4. French fairy tales also have a story Fortunatus, Fortunatus, published in 1530. The content is also a variation of the above stories. An adventurous guy named Fortunatus, lost in the forest, received from Mrs. Tai a bag that never ran out of money. Later, he used a trick to get a hat from a king, Sin Tan, in Alexander that could be transported at will. He died and left two precious things to his sons Ampedo and Andalusia. The son traveling with the bag was known and taken by Agrippine, the daughter of the King of England. Returning to get his brother's magic hat, he entered the English king's castle and used the hat to take the princess to a deserted place in Hiberny. There are fruit-bearing apple trees here. The princess asked for food, he sent his hat to climb the tree. Immediately the princess wished to return to the castle alone. Andalusia was so frightened, but the disaster was not alone. He ate the apple and grew two horns on his head, so he had to sit and mourn. A monk passing by heard the crying and showed him another kind of apple that could make the horn disappear. Then, like the stories above, he also gave away both types of apples, tried to return to London to sell the first type to the princess, and then pretended to be a doctor to cure horn loss before taking back the precious objects. Then he told the hat to take both him and the princess to a convent, then left her there and left. In medieval Western literature, there is also a story about a prince receiving three precious things from his father. He falls into the trap of a beautiful girl. This girl sensed the value of the three objects and tried to take them. In the end, the prince was betrayed by the girl and left in the desert. So hungry, he walked haphazardly. Along the way, he saw a fruit from a tree. Eating it unexpectedly gave him leprosy. Eating another fruit is good. When he arrived in a certain country, he tried using the second fruit to cure a leper, whom they considered a great healer. Returning to the old city, the great physician, Prince, was welcomed by the girl into his home for treatment, but she did not recognize his appearance. The great healer said, "This disease will heal if you repent for the sins you committed before, otherwise I will give up." The other girl confessed. But here, after taking back the 3 treasures, the prince let his enemies eat the fruit of the leprosy tree and then left. 5. Indian fairy tale. A king prepares a trip. Then he made a contract with the first mandarin of the court, saying that if he did not return after a year, he must hand over the country to the second mandarin of the court to go find him. The king went to the place and met 4 thieves, stole 4 precious things, and they were arguing and no one agreed with the other. The 4 precious objects are: a sword that can behead an enemy at a distance, a porcelain bowl that can bring you delicious food just by signaling, a carpet that can make money, and a throne that can carry you anywhere. Chosen to be the referee, the king told whoever could dive into the water longer to get the most precious thing, etc. When they lowered their heads, the king quickly took everything, then climbed up on the throne and told it to take him to a city. Faraway city. Here the king fell in love with a famous and beautiful prostitute and took gold from the carpet to serve her. Surprised by the strange carpet, the girl sent a servant to spy on her to find out the value of the carpet and other objects, so she coaxed the king to bring everything, then invited her to meet the king of her country to go hunting together. As soon as the 2 men left, she stole and hid valuables, then set fire to the house. Seeing the fire from afar, the king quickly ran back and saw the girl with her hair down lying on the ground crying. The king asked, "Where are those things?" "Don't know." So he ran out of money. The king was spurned by prostitutes and had no way to return to his country. A year passed, and the head of the court left to find the king. At a certain place there was a well of boiling black water. A weasel came to drink and a few drops splashed on its head, and it suddenly turned into a monkey. Seeing this, the mandarin took a jar and took it away. When he met the king, he gave him gold and told him to go to the prostitute's house and take him with him to pretend to be a servant. While talking, the court official secretly dripped water on the girl's head and she immediately turned into a monkey. The maid saw this and prostrated herself, asking for her master to return to his original form. "You have to give me the sword, the porcelain bowl, and the carpet." The maid brought it. The 2 quickly climbed onto the throne, and a moment later returned to their old country. The stories below all partly combine with the motif of the story The Mysterious Guest Bird, number 153. For example, another story from Italy. A young man ate the heart of a magical bird, so every morning he found a box of money under his pillow. While traveling to a certain city, the young man stayed at the home of a woman and her daughter. The very beautiful girl made him happy to boast about her fate and even told the secret of the wealth that was harvested regularly every day. Your mother was moved by greed, so she fed the guy a medicine that made the bird's heart pop out to take possession, then chased him out the door. Thanks to a fairy who took pity on him and gave him a magic ring that could take people far away, he returned to the girl's house, but unexpectedly the girl also knew. She suggested going to the mountains. In the end, she left him on a high mountain and stole the magic ring to return alone. Here, the hungry guy also looked for food, but it wasn't an apple but a salad, which naturally turned into a donkey. The donkey gradually went down to the foot of the mountain to graze. Unexpectedly, when he ate a strange grass, he turned into a human. He picked both things, disguised himself, and sold lettuce in front of the girl and her mother's house. The girl bought lettuce to eat and turned into a donkey. He also healed her on the condition that he return all precious objects. The story of the Calmokes in the book The Miraculous Death. There were two young men. One was the king's son, Khan, and one was the other's friend, who were captured and were about to be used as prey for the two children. Ferocious frogs used to force local people to surrender one person's life every year. It was said that anyone who ate the meat of those two animals would spit out gold and precious stones, so the two men tried to kill the two frogs and then eat the meat. Then he left after releasing countless treasures. At the foot of a certain mountain, the two men stayed at the house of a mother and son who worked as a wine seller. Knowing that the guest had a treasure, mother and son got drunk, robbed it, and chased it out the door. The two boys went quite a distance and met a group of children who were fighting over a magic hat that made people invisible. They told them, "The hat will go to whoever reaches the finish line first." They obeyed, but as they ran, they took the hat, and in the same way they captured a pair of 7-mile shoes over which the two devils were fighting. Through many adventures, one day they stopped by a temple. Looking through the door, he saw the temple keeper spreading a wide sheet of paper and wrapping it around his body. After wrapping it, he naturally transformed into a donkey. Wrap the paper a second time and turn back into a human. They went into the temple and stole a roll of paper, brought it to the house of the mother and son. And the wine seller said that if they used that paper to roll it around themselves, they would get a lot of gold. Being greedy for money, mother and son obeyed and turned into female donkeys. To punish them, they forced them to do hard work for 2 or 3 years, waiting until they repented before returning them to their original form. The ending of this story is similar to the French story The Blue Bird. See Strange Tales No. 123, Volume 3. Arabic fairy tale, Arabi. A young man, after eating the throat of a strange bird, suddenly became stronger than humans. He went to a certain country, where it was posted that whoever won the princess in a wrestling contest would get to marry the princess, but if he lost, he would lose his head. I asked to fight. The princess, who was famous for her strength and used to make her opponents lose their heads, could not win against him. Both sides rested and waited for the next match tomorrow. Guessing there was something strange in the young man's body, in the afternoon they gave him an anesthetic. When he was unconscious, the doctor took off his shirt and examined him, knowing that his health was caused by the throat of a strange bird. They then used magic to remove the throat from the stomach. Waking up and feeling that he was losing his health, he ran away. There is also a story here where along the way he met 3 people who were fighting over 3 precious objects: a flying carpet, a bowl of delicious food, and a handmill that could turn into money. He then threw a stone far away, saying that whoever picked it up first would be the owner of the precious objects. Then while they were running, he wished for the carpet to take him to Cable Mountain, then brought it back to the princess, offering to continue wrestling on his carpet. When both of them stepped onto the carpet, he wished for the carpet to carry them both to Cat Mountain. Seeing this, the princess was scared and promised to return the bird's throat to him if he brought her back. He thought that was the end, but he revealed the other 2 precious objects, making the princess greedy, so she asked him to take her for a walk. For a moment he stepped off the carpet, and immediately the princess wished to return to her father. Having lost everything, the young man could only sit and cry. Similar to the above stories, while wandering along the road, he found 2 date palm trees. One was yellow, and when he ate the fruit, he grew horns. A red color, when eaten, the horns fall off. He filled his bag, brought it home, disguised it, and sold it at the door. The princess ate 16 fruits and grew 8 horns. All doctors are at a loss. The king promised to marry the princess to whoever healed her. The guy came, started feeding a red date. 1 horn fell off. Continued 1 fruit every day until the 8th day, when he was able to marry the princess, and thus regained all the precious things. 6. Some of the stories below also have a plot to punish bad guys by making their nose longer, but they do not belong to the above motif, only partly combined with the motif of the story Tam and Tu, number 149. Dao people. There's a story called The Pendulum. There were 2 brothers. The older brother usurped all the property left by his parents, and even forced the younger brother to do hard labor. One day the younger brother was alone farming rice, chasing a bird that ate rice. He happened to climb the mountain to a house where there were 7 fairies, and there was a rattlesnake, and when he wished, rice was served. The guy stole the precious fruit and brought it home so he could eat and drink to his heart's content and treat his neighbors as a treat. Knowing that his brother had obtained precious things by chasing birds, the older brother also went to watch rice at night and also chased the bird, but when he arrived, he did not expect it because he lost the rattlesnake last time, so the 7 fairies set up a wait. Catching him, each girl pinched his nose, and his nose suddenly swelled up to his navel. The older brother came to ask for help from me. I went to wait at the house of the 7 fairies. I overheard that the magic trick to heal a swollen nose was tapping a rattle on my nose with the mantra, "Live honestly." Live honestly. Thanks to that, he was able to heal his brother, after forcing him to endure the pain of a swollen nose for many days as punishment. 7. The Burmese, Myanmar, have a story about an alcoholic and an opium addict, very similar to the story just told. There was an alcoholic and an opium addict, abandoned by their neighbors, and became soulmates. They wander around and sleep everywhere. One day, the alcoholic fell asleep at a bar near the cemetery. That night, some demons came in and said, "It smells like raw meat." They went to control, but he imitated them very skillfully. 1, 2, 3, 4. A little is not wrong. So they did not expect anything, and told them that there was a pot of gold under the seat. In the morning, he took the cherry and brought it home and became rich. The opium addict also imitated sleeping at the shop, hoping to gain wealth, but unfortunately, because of the loss of wealth, the demons paid attention this time. When they caught him, they stretched his nose 9 meters long to punish him. The other guy went out with the demons. When he asked for a cure, the demon told him to rub his nose with a pestle and it would heal him. 8. In Vietnam, there is a story about the flat-nose guy, which is similar to the 2 stories above. A dying father left 30 pieces of silver to his 2 sons. The 2 brothers invited each other to start a business, but his brother took everything. The younger brother slept in a temple and listened to the gods talk. One person asked, "The grapefruit tree in a certain village is green, why is it withering?" Answer: If you kill 2 white mice that bite off the roots, the tree will be green again. There is an old woman in a village who has a melon tree that produces 2 golden fruits every year. Why does it keep withering? If she takes good care of the horse, the tree will be green again. Another person said, I have a drum that beats 3 times to get food. After speaking, he took out the drum and beat it to prepare the feast and invite each other to drink. Waking up in the morning, the younger brother saw where the gods had disappeared, so he took the magic drum and went to the village with the grapefruit tree and showed it to the villagers to catch and kill 2 white mice. Then he went to the village where the old woman lived and showed it to the villagers. She told me how to cure precious melon plants. She married his daughter to him, and the 2 lived happily. When he met the greedy older brother again, the younger brother told his story. The older brother also went to the ancient temple. At this time, the gods seemed angry and just talked to each other about their stories that were somehow revealed. When they found him, they dragged him out and beat him, forcing him to return the magic drum. He begged to come back and get it. The gods then stretched his nose. When you finish paying, the spell will be shortened. Hearing my brother's story, I went to the ancient temple. Listen to the gods say that if you put a drum in your nose, the nose will return to its original shape. The younger brother then returned and pressed the drum against his brother's nose, but here he pressed too hard, causing his nose to become flat and concave. 9. See more stories in Strange Tales number 149. 1. According to Le Don V.Y. Children's Books, number 8, 1940, and Nguyen Van Nock, Ibid. 2. According to Ha Sun Bin Ancient Tales, Ha Sun Bin Information and Culture Department, 1977. 3. A version collected in Ecuador, Acore, roughly has 3 people. A soldier returned from the battlefield. He entered a beautiful castle and saw that there was rice prepared, so they ate together. After eating, they walked around the garden and a cat gave them 3 precious things. The first person received a bag always full of money, the second person received a chopstick that could summon soldiers, and the third person received a magic ticket. Take people anywhere. Then there is also the episode of playing cards with a princess. The princess swept the table and was surprised to see that the first man never ran out of money. So he made an identical bag and swapped it. Losing the magic bag, he borrowed his friend's magic wand and also lost it. Later, I borrowed a magic ticket to invite the princess to go to the beach. The ticket took them to the island. Seeing an apple tree with fruit, the princess told him to climb up and pick it. He climbed and accidentally dropped the ballot. The princess picked it up and shouted for the ticket to take her home alone. The guy stayed behind to pick apples to eat, but unexpectedly his head grew horns. He wandered somewhere else and saw a pear tree. When he picked the pears to eat, the horns on his head fell off. He met a fairy who told him to disguise himself as a fruit seller and pick the fruit to sell. The maid bought apples for the princess to eat, and the princess grew a horn. While the doctor was helpless, like the story above, the guy pretended to be a doctor and was invited into the castle to treat the princess. The first time, the doctor gave me some medicine that was ineffective. The teacher said, "If you have sins in your heart and do not repent, this disease is very difficult to cure." The princess said, "Tomorrow I will go to confession." Tomorrow morning he went first and hid in the baptismal area, telling the princess, If there is anything of conscience, just tell the truth and the horn will fall off. I got a monster bag. He gave 2 pairs to eat, causing some of the horns to fall off. And so on until he got back all 3 precious objects. He told him to bring the ticket to his friend's house to return it. Then the 3 returned and they were married to the princesses. 4. According to Thai Ancient Tales, Culture Publishing House, Hanoi, 1980. 5. In Gesta Romanorum, Gesta Romanorum. 6. All according to Kazkan, Kasqueen. Folk Tales of the Loren Region, Volume 1, 7. According to Viet Bac's Fairy Tales, Volume 2, Viet Bac Publishing House, 1974. 8. According to Burmese Folk Tales. 9. According to the Magic Guitar. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.